Jenny Kimes, and I am the Director of Children's Programming here at Down Syndrome of Louisville. And I've been here for about 10 years. My title has kind of changed over time. I was originally the Director of Early Education and just worked with the babies. And then as our programming has grown and evolved, I've, worked with older and older children, so my title changed to Director of Children's Programming.
Okay. So what does your organization do?
Well, we serve individuals that have a diagnosis of Down syndrome and their families. We are a provider of educational services. That's sort of the main thing that we do, whether it is going into families' homes with their baby through the First Steps program or our Adult Development Academy. We're education focused. We work on really anything that's a concern for the families and that individual. It could be reading, math, and that could be, in the toddler years we start our reading program, and we have adults come to us sometimes after they finish high school that couldn't read, and we've taught them to read here. So, and for little ones, infants, it's not necessarily reading and math skills, it's more just developmental skills, which can get kind of broad because our developmental interventionists who work with the toddlers and infants, they have teaching degrees for birth through preschool. And so they're working on a lot of things, walking, sitting, rolling, talking, self-help skills, all that.
Okay. What other services do you provide, outside of education?
Well, we contract with a therapeutic organization called Associates in Pediatric Therapy, and they provide speech, PT, physical therapy, and occupational therapy, and they meet with our members here. But in addition to that consultative service, we have our own Career Solutions program, which is a job support program. I love that program. It is where we meet with an individual, do an in-depth interview about what their interests are, what their talents are, what they want to do as a career. And then we go into the local community and ask anyone in that field who would be interested in hiring one of our members. And then we do a job analysis of the skills necessary to do that job. And then we come back and kind of cross-train, our members on those skills. And then we support them in the job. While they're there, we go in and coach them and kind of work out any issues. And we kind of slowly, pull back as they're more independent. So that's just one of the other things we do that's not educational. We have a lot of teen and tween events monthly. For the tweeners are 11 to 15, and then we have teen and young adult events, dances, or going out to the movies, going shopping, really to not only work on specific community skills, but to get kids connected. Trying to think of any of our other. We have SIB shops, which I run those. We have those about quarterly through the year, but that is a sibling support network. So usually we target children age 8 to 13 who are brothers and sisters of someone with Down syndrome. Could be an older sibling or a younger sibling, and they get together and get to just network, and I kind of intermingle fun things with more serious talking points and topics, so kids can not feel like weird or alone, having a brother or sister with Down syndrome. So that's another service we provide. I'm trying to think. I feel like we do so much. I might have to look at our list of what non-educational. We do a lot of advocacy and outreach. We educate, I guess it's educational, we educate medical professionals and different service providers in the community. We'll go out and leave information and meet with them and talk about what Down syndrome is and, more importantly, what it isn't. So to kind of dispel any myths or stereotypes about the diagnosis. Most everything else is, I think, educational. Well, and then we have contract behaviorists too. We actually have 4 behaviorists who work with us to work on anything from toilet training, so it doesn't have to be a bad behavior, to promote a good behavior, or it could be an inappropriate behavior. And they work with our young ones all the way up through our adults. So that's just another service that we provide. I think that's
That's a lot.
I think that's about it. Yeah, and really, most most of our programming, really all of our programming, comes out of a need.
Right.
Whether it's one of our members have said, I think I would like to do this, or I think we need this here, or mostly parents saying, I'm having this frustration and we have this need, and we get a few parents together that all have the same need, and we say, hey, we could fill a gap. You know, if we can't figure out a way to get their need met in the local community, then we try to fill that here. So, yeah.
What would you consider the most difficult part of your job?
That is a good question. I think probably just sometimes frustration and working with different staff, you know, whether it's going into the school, sometimes going into the public school and working with a whole team, from a counselor and a principal to a district specialist to a regular education teacher and a special education teacher, just working with a variety of people, all kind of pulling together for the same purpose, you know, for that student. Everybody comes in with their own agenda and their own perspective, and getting everybody on the same page and helping different, whether it's a public school or a different facility, to know that we're on the same team. You know, we don't want to come in and say, this is how you do your job, but we do have a lot of resources that can help. So I think that probably is the most difficult, just always conveying the message that we're on the same team and working within limitations. I mean, I hate to always use this public school as an example, but they only have so much money.
Right.
You know, funding is limited, and so knowing what a need of a student is, but what just the natural systemic limitations are that we can't necessarily change, is really hard. So you do the best you can, you know, within those limitations. But that's probably the most challenging, I think, is to make something work when you don't have all the resources that you would love to have, you know, at your fingertips. So.
What do you think is like least understood about people with Down syndrome?
That is another good question. Honestly, I think the biggest thing probably relates to behavior, and sometimes parents may want to adjust their expectations for their children's behavior because they think that, well, they don't understand, so we're going to let them get away with that behavior, when our children are actually pretty bright. They're very good at figuring out how things work and how people work. And sometimes that can create, you know, a worse behavior. So, and teachers, especially for young children, will do that a lot. They'll let a lot of things go that maybe, so I think having high expectations is good. I always say Down syndrome doesn't excuse a behavior. It may explain it, but it doesn't excuse it. So, I think that's one of the biggest
So,
ones.
what do you think that would help people like understand that better? Just
I think educating people on the strengths of our members, how bright they are, and how usually social skills are one of their fairly developed, you know, well-developed skills. And just because they may have less developed language skills doesn't mean that their social skills aren't developed. That kind of goes with your other question, as many people think that people with Down syndrome are kind of all at the same level across development, that their motor skills are the same as their language skills, and that's the same as their social skills, and that's the same as their cognitive and thinking skills, when that's not true at all. You know, our members, just like all people, have strengths and weaknesses. And because their motor skills may be here and their language skills here, doesn't mean that, you know, their social skills and their ability to kind of manipulate people aren't well developed.
Why do you think that this particular injustice occurs in our world? Like, not that people have Down syndrome, but maybe that they're